Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why.
Good evening, everyone. I guess you guys can see it's just me and my riding partner, Mr. Tyrone Jackson. He had to come from behind the scene and start riding. What is it called? Not a co-pilot, but shotgun. Don't pull it out. Yep, we're actually waiting on our guest, one of our guests. Uh, Today is one of the days that Tyrone is one of our guests because it's a subject matter close and dear to his heart, just like his boys are. And so it's a subject matter that we, as parents, especially as Black parents, have to always address. And that's our kids. When you're a caring father, the you can't do enough for your kids. I don't care how mad they make you, how upset you get with them. you know. But as part of being a parent, your parents put up with you, so now you need payback is real, as Johnny Goodman Watson used to say. So payback is something else. I got my one child that, she's just like her daddy. I just shake my head and said, I guess I know what I sent my mom through. But anyway, while we're waiting on our guest and our other co-host, hopefully everything is all good. I know I had a pretty rough day. How was yours, Mr. Jackson?
Well, it was pretty good. I'm not going to complain at all. I was able to get everything done that I need to get done, and with very little controversy. We were anticipating a little chaos because of the off day for the holiday and things of that nature, but it turned out to just be a very good day.
I think that's where we at. I guess I can say the same thing. Anytime after a holiday in the practice, I expect to be busy, I was not disappointed. I was pretty busy, but they were really true, legitimate. Oh, I think I'm having a heart attack. Who is that?
Elizabeth, you're coming to join you, honey.
I'm telling you now.
Sounds like y'all miss me, or is it because I came back a new me today?
Hey,
Now the mouth is the same.
new hair, new same you.
Yeah, yeah, you came in just in time. I like to do.
I do too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well,
Appreciate that. Sorry for being late, and looks like we're already into the show and having our discussion for tonight. So what have you all solved all the problems, all the
not yet.
dilemmas?
All I did was introduce one of our guests that that is not behind the scenes this evening. I introduced one of our guests already, and I'm waiting on the other one to join. I really hadn't talked with them today. They're usually pretty much on time, so something must be up on that. However, we will move forward.
Do you want to pause a minute and go ahead and call it? No pause, no pun intended for pause for the truth.
But no, I will. I go ahead and touch base with them. But meantime, we got a few things that we can talk about. I will like to let the audience know that, true to our word, we went to the melanin market this weekend. Had a great time. Okay, spent quite a bit of money um, with black vendors. Tyrone had a whole lot of ideas that he thought that can help add to the joy of the melanin market, including I think he unmasked you because you had some real place or something. Jocelyn Real, was that what that was?
No, chicken and fish.
That's what it was.
And here's the irony of it. Shortly after that, when I exited off the highway, onto Dunn Avenue, well, Bush Drive, Dunn Avenue exit, a truck passed by with that same
Logo.
company. Yeah, logo. I was like, wow.
What are
Is
the
this
odds of
my
that
next business?
happening?
Maybe he was trying to give you a hint.
I know, right? So
Absolutely.
looks like I forgot my phone. Oh well, I guess I won't be disturbed tonight. So have you told share with our audience what we're talking about?
Not in detail. I thought I'd save that hoorah for you. Let give you something to talk about other than your new do. And look here, the new do is so striking that I'm trying to remember these the same glasses you had in the past.
Yeah, yeah.
Same glasses. Same glasses. Don't
Well,
call me out, Dr. Kane. These are the same glasses. Wait a minute now.
it's hard to tell.
So listen, let me start off though by, on a serious note. Last week I was not on because I was in Alaska. When I tell you that was an experience, you know what I appreciated about the trip, and it really ties into kind of tie. I'm going to weave it to
All right.
relate it to the topic of tonight, because the thing that I appreciated about that trip is how the the reminder of honoring your elders and understanding your history and taking time to listen to your elders and learning from them, and really having an appreciation for family and life and the land. We take land for granted. um, Without trees, without water, without air, all of those things that we should be reminded that they play a very important part in our life. But regarding tonight's discussion, we talked a lot about rituals. We learned, we had some discussion about rituals and cultures, and those rituals in our family that honor family and honor our ancestors, those persons living, and then our ancestors. So tonight, as we begin to talk about fatherhood, and more importantly Black fatherhood, and you know what, Dr. Kane and Tyrone, there are so many myths about Black fathers not being present in their children's lives. And of course, I can say present company is surely not included in that, because both of you talk a lot about your children, and Dr. Kane, he couldn't stop there. He has to also talk about his grandchildren, right? And I'm not hating, but I'm just saying it. And so that's very pleasing to hear. So tell me, why do you think, and I'm posing it to both of you, but I'm going to start with Tyrone. Tyrone, why do you think that people have a notion, that misconception, if you will, that Black fathers are absent from their children's lives? What's your thought on that?
Well, I think one part of it is it helps them to push forth the narrative. See, in a
Mm,
society where social information is as important as real information, the more you can tell people, the louder you can say it, the more people are apt to believe it. So then you give them a built-in excuse. So you give those who are struggling, because fatherhood nor motherhood is easy. But when the times get tough and you give them an out, then some decide to take that out. And what better way to take the out than to say, well, it's not my fault. You know,
mm.
they've been telling me since I was a kid that there were no Black fathers in the home, so I'm just like every other. I'm just like every other Black. So it is a convenient excuse to use, and it truly belittles the true number and the true understanding of the fathers that make the decision to stay.
I was thinking about, even amongst my friends, my closest friends, I actually met, I can say the majority of my friends, they did have their fathers present. I knew their mothers and their fathers. You know what I mean? They may not have, their parents may not have been together as far as still married, but they knew, I knew, but a lot of them were, and when again, I'm looking at my closest friends, most of them had their, both parents in the household, or at least in their lives, as far as I can remember, or even they didn't have their biological father. They had a stepfather who was a part. I was blessed to have a father and a stepfather, and then for some who were really lucky, they had plenty of uncles and also maybe a goddaddy or granddaddy. So, with me, my joke that I always said, my grandfather was Mr. Wilson, and they had a little storefront on the front of their home, and the kids used to come in, Mr. Wilson, made me think about Dennis the Menace, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I too had actually used my grandfather, my great grandfather, and my dad and uncles and whatever. So, Dr. Kane, what about you? Why do you think the narrative on Black fatherhood is out there, and negative narrative, in my opinion, rather than positive things said about the presence of Black fathers?
Well, I'm going to have to go to what some people say. Oh, there he go again. I think racism has a whole lot to do with it. I think that just the even just like when they say the negative of black folk being lazy. Okay, I mean when you hear people say that we're lazy and don't want to work, but we built this country was built on our backs, and I think there has been strategic um, strategic planning and destroying the black family because it helps give a lot more control to the majority in terms of them getting their messages across and then maintaining the privileges that they have. Um, Let me interrupt something real quick. Tyrone, I think Jerome says he's on Facebook Live, but I think he's Mr. Mosley. He's on Facebook Live. I was trying to get him to go to his email and tag in on it. I'm gonna send you real quick his number so you can.
Okay, okay.
But
Yeah, I was trying to look all studious. Now you're gonna make me put my glasses on.
Well, if you're just joining us while they are getting themselves together, tonight we're talking about correcting the narrative of Black fatherhood. And I'm going to read a couple of interesting facts. Article actually that Dr. Kane shared with me is 6 actual facts shatter the biggest stereotypes of Black fathers. And one of the things that it says, sadly, for too long, the primary narrative about Black family dynamics has been that the majority of Black children live in single parent households, and more than half of those households are headed by Black mothers. But if we are honest with ourselves, this is a report that former President Barack Obama did, a Father's Day speech. He said, but if we are honest with ourselves, we'll have to admit that too many fathers are missing from too many lives and too many homes. They have abandoned their responsibilities, acting like boys instead of men. Obviously, people have different, varying opinions about it. Oh, his remarks represent some of the broad stereotypes that continue to plague the depiction of Black dads of the mainstream media and social psyche. Indeed, research by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention shows that Black fathers continue to play an active role in the lives of their children and communities, despite a plethora of challenges that date all the way back to the history of slavery. Hence, which is why you were talking about that, Dr.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. I mean, it's they've done everything they can to keep the black family from being the particular. I'm sorry to be distracted, but I guess it's trying to get on.
Yeah, but hold on, Dr. Kane, while you finish that, let me finish reading this. It says,
Okay,
ultimately, Black fathers are shaping their children's futures like any other parents, and it's high time they receive their fair share of credit. Black fathers are not conditioned to be absent. Contrary to popular opinion, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has found that Black fathers are more involved with their kids on a daily basis than fathers from other racial groups. The Pew Research Center also consistently concluded over the years that there are no significant differences in the parenting styles of Black and white fathers, despite the fact that Black fatherhood is in a prolonged state of crisis.
When you look at the obvious, let's take a look at, and I'm just using this as an example. You know, when a family receives any assistance from the state, one of the things that they require, believe it or not, is that the male cannot be in the household. It can only be
Yeah.
women and children. You know, and if you're trying to be a father, you're trying to stay with your kids, you may be having a rough time trying to find a job. And
Mm-hmm.
Lord knows how hard it was for many of us to get a job, especially early on in life. You
Mm-hmm.
couldn't stay in that household with your child. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's the worst thing. That makes absolutely no sense to me. You know, and particularly if you're trying to make sure that those kids grow up to be responsible citizens. And part of that training of being a responsible citizen, is seeing your parents being responsible citizens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for the to deny, and I never did understand the principle behind it, to deny black fathers access to their kids simply because it's a rule, and again, the original rule, I don't know why. It's some kind of a rule or a statute or whatever the hell it might be, that you can't live in the household. And if you're a male, you can't live in that household and help raise your children if if there's any state assistance done there. In the days when we can look right now and see how minimum wage for today is just really, really not enough to function, as we all know. And very, the cost of housing, even the cost of renting is very difficult. And when you can't make enough money, you got to work two and three jobs just to try to make ends meet, you know, and they want to call you a bum because you're asking for a little assistance. I guess maybe like some of these big corporations got a little assistance. You know, are they bums? You know, if they're getting these
Mm-hmm.
tax breaks and so on
Mm-hmm.
and so on. So I think it's one of those uh, 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 planned um, parts of this society that want to keep the black family apart, keep it separated over the years, like Jim Crow and the rest of the things that took. Let's not even talk about the drug wars and all this other foolishness that has occurred over the years that have kept black fathers either in prison or at least away from the house. I'm not
Yeah.
saying every black father was a good father. I'm just
Right.
saying, the odds were set against him because of some other bigger plan.
And I think the thing that you're saying is actually it's right on point, because I attended a conference years ago and they talked about that the systems that the government, the institutional systems that the government put in place, don't foster healthy relationships and family, the nuclear families, because if a female happens to not be with the father of her children, but she meets a new guy, and if they want to live together, she'll have to move out of that subsidized housing. But if the relationship has not progressed, and let's call it like it is, Dr. Kane, people will, as we used to say back in the day, shack up before they
Back
get
up.
married, right? And
Right.
if the government find out that a male is in that household, then they'll want to kick that woman and her children out. And even with the programs, and I'm going to bring Dr. Mosley in shortly, even with the other program that is in place that people get assistance with, women, infant, and children's program. So where is the father in that, right?
Right.
I mean, so again, when you talk about those institutional systems that are in place, but yet so many organizations and even states and cities will say they promote families and healthy relationships. But when you have programs set up that don't encourage families, how can you say that you want a mother to be in a healthy relationship with with their father? Joining us this evening is Dr. Jerome Mosley. Happy Dr. Mosley, welcome and thank you for coming. I was looking at you. I said, I don't think I've seen him before because we did audio only the last time you were on, right?
No, I thought we was on. Well, I think the last one we did. I think we were just on audio.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. Looks like you're on your evening commute.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Well, we of course are talking about a topic that I know that you can contribute to because of the good work that you've been doing in the community. So, when we talk about correcting the narrative about Black fatherhood. What comes to mind to you that we really need to talk about, Dr. Mosley?
I think the biggest thing is that it needs to be talked about more, and it needs to be um, our community is so different now. Working with the youth that I work with, just from a nonprofit standpoint, with the young men that I mentor or work with, I would say 99% of the young men I work with are from single parent homes, and most of them are from either their mother or a grandparent. And one of the questions that I always ask is, is the father in their lives, or where is the dad? And a lot of time the dad is not in the picture for whatever reason, whether it be in prison or deceased, or just not in the picture. And it is a big, to me, it's a big dilemma, because when you talk to kids about working with their fathers or knowing their parents or a two-parent home, that's not the norm these days. And so one of the things that I think needs to happen is it needs to be more communication. It needs to be more talked about. And it's so much that's going on in our community that to just try to focus just on that part. And I think that's where the disconnect is. There's so much going on with mental health and education and the crime and all this stuff like that, that still need to be a big component of what we do in trying to make the family whole again. We talk about the new village, but a part of that is getting that mother and that father to connect for the child's sake. Not necessarily the expectation that they need to get married to each other again and have a family, but that child needs the father and the mother in their life, and that can affect the child. That's a part of the trauma that these kids are going through.
So
Awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
going to mention something. Tyrone, hold on one thought because I want to mention something and you may want to chime in on this. In this same article, it talks about Black fathers are not fueling out of wedlock births on their own. There's been long notion made popular by the Moynihan report that Black fathers are having children out of wedlock more than men of any other race. However, while that may have been the case in 1965, today much of the 41% of mothers that are giving birth are white. And the report found that there are 4 million more white children living in single parent homes than there are Black children live in America. So while the case may be that the children that you interact with are all Black, which is why you can say the statistics of the children that you interact with, the majority of the households are single mothers. However, according to this particular article, it says that black single mothers, white single mothers outweigh the number of Black single mothers, which that could be the case because the majority of people in this country are still white people. Go ahead, Tyrone.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Ms. Jocelyn. And there are a couple of things that I think are designed specifically to skew the narrative. And this is what we're talking about today. The narrative of Black fatherhood. It does a white population no good for the facts that Black fathers stay with their families because it then gives hope and promise to those children. Now, let's not belabor, let's not hide the fact there is a percentage of Black men who, for whatever reason, do not take on the role of fatherhood. There are some who don't because of the challenge with the mother. There's some because of incarceration. There's some because of selfish indignation. The fact is, we want to look at affecting those that we can. One, the ones where there's a disconnect between the mothers and the fathers still viable. We need to bridge that. The ones where the fathers are not incarcerated and the fathers are trying to do their best. There needs to be a bridge there. And one other thing that often gets overlooked is that in the Black community, we have a higher concentration of father substitutes. Athletics is one of the most prominent things in the Black community. It doesn't take much to look at any athletic or any professional arena and see the number of Black professionals there. These men and women were taught by coaches. Those coaches become substitutes for those fathers.
Yeah, and Dr. Kane, you look like your mouth is pursing like, but let me stop you for a second and remind our folks, if you have any comments that you'd like to make regarding our discussion tonight, how do we correct the narrative about Black fathers being a part of their children's lives? Dial in now, 888-669. Uh-oh, Tyrone, I forgot it. I missed a week and now I forgot the number. 888. Come on, Dr. Kane, help me out. 669
You talking to a man that got dementia?
1280. If you have any comments regarding tonight's topic, please chime in because it is indeed a very important topic as we talk about correcting the narrative about Black fathers. Go ahead, Dr. Kane. Did you have something to add?
Well, the only thing I was really going to add to it, and hopefully I'm not getting an echo. I mean, this is probably one of the most echoing shows we've had in a minute. One of the things that I wanted to make sure our audience, that both Black men and women need to appreciate is that, that if your relationship sours, that doesn't mean that you should either encourage or cause souring of of the maternal or paternal relationship.
Mhm.
One of the things I remember with my wife when we first got married, I said, "There's no way I'm just gonna let kids keep me in a household, keep me together simply just because we're married." I've never been so wrong in my life, because it had to be. It ain't just about me. I was being very selfish when I made that statement, and I had to really think about, what I really. Those kids didn't ask to come here, but they are asking for you to be part of their lives, and they're asking for whether it's the mother or father to be part of their lives, and um, we should not do we should do everything in our power to keep that other parent involved with those children. You don't have to have a relationship with that parent beyond being a co-parent. Okay, and I think that we have to give up our degree of selfishness at time in terms of how we look at raising our kids. Now, that is not the only thing that is playing a role in terms of the difficulties that Black men and women, but Black men, since that's the subject this evening, that have in terms of difficulty trying to raise our kids and be with our kids. Again, it's a system, the institutionalism of a system that encourages Black families not to thrive, and I feel sometimes Black kids not to thrive in their capabilities of how they can contribute to society because they want to paint a certain picture of what Black folks, Black people are about, and they can be forever wrong. But we will allow them to claim that narrative to be true when we in fact know is not true. My mom and dad didn't get along, but my dad didn't disappear. He was still around, which I can say, being a young kid, of course, how males are. We bump heads with those males that are seniors. But at some point, he didn't give up, and he wanted to be sure that his kids survived and made it in this world. And we just have to stop being selfish and realize what our kids are up against. They're against a system that looks at times to try to destroy their lives. Between the father being placed in jail, a lot of times not, a lot of times it's not fair. It wasn't correct in terms of being placed there, but still they're there. And so I agree with Hillary to a degree. It takes a village, but part of that village needs to make sure our fathers are still around to contribute to that village as well.
Well,
Yeah, another interesting fact from this article said regarding the parents in prison. This report says 1 in 15 Black children had a parent in prison in 2000. This is a reference in 2007, compared with 1 in 42 Latino children and 1 in 111 white children. Most of these incarcerated parents are Black men, of which 47% lived at home with their children before they went to jail. So just think about that, right? Go ahead, Tyrone.
But I was just going to say, one of the things that's helped this narrative is something you brought up at the very beginning. For those who are just tuned in, Ms. Johnson eloquently told us about being in Alaska. And one of the things she admired was seeing the culture and the respect for the elders and things of that nature. All of that built by tradition. Let's not forget that the opportunity for us to share our tradition was stripped from us from the very beginning.
Yep.
And there has never been a movement and or an opportunity to attempt to rebuild, recycle, or recreate that aspect of growing up in America. So it is when times are difficult and there are challenges in life, we often look to rituals, routines that have been created to help us get through that. Well, we've been stripped of those. And therefore, the challenge becomes all the more difficult for us when we're talking about creating a family unit. Whether that family unit is the father and the mother, or the uncle and the aunts, and all of those people play a role in raising children. The statement of "it takes a village" was referring to all of the adults that come in contact with a child to help promote the routines, rituals, and cultures of that group. And it's been stripped from us.
Dr. Mosley, this is a good thing that I'd like for you to chime in on, because I know you're raising, since we used that narrative before. I know your efforts in terms of trying to make sure these young Black males are taught how to become good citizens. And even though you're not trying to teach them to become good fathers, because you don't want them being fathers too early, you don't want that being misperceived as let's go out there and have kids at that age. But you do want to teach them the responsibility and the of caring for others. What do what's the most difficult thing you run into in terms of dealing with the troubled youth, if you want to call them trouble, because not all of them are trouble, but dealing with the youth that you're dealing with and their fathers?
So we don't call them trouble. We'll say, at hope. That's the new thing. They're at hope. They're at risk. But we really push hard on teaching them about manhood and what that consists of. And the biggest thing that we get them to understand is they have responsibilities. And although I have had a few young men that, I've worked with in the past that have had children, the biggest thing that I push for them is to be responsible and take care of that responsibility. And that don't mean that, if you and, the child's mother, you're not together in a relationship, but you still connected to her with that child, and you need to still be responsible and take care of that child. So we really pour into those youth to make sure that they know, regardless of what you did or what you had in the past, you have a child now, so you need to take care of that responsibility, and we're going to help you and guide you through the process. But there's no such thing as giving up, walking away, and none of that. No, you're going to take care of that responsibility. You and her did that together, and so you're going to be the responsible man to take care of that child. Now, the ones who do not have any kids, we just talk about the fact of, we give examples of the relationships that we are in, myself and my colleague. We're married with our kids, and we talk about, marriage, what that means. We talk about, responsibility and what we have to do to sacrifice for our children, and, our expectations for our kids. And they realize it's just the same as what we treat them. We treat all of them like they're our kids. So at the end of the day, they understand that it's about respect. It's about making sure that they understand the roles and responsibilities that we have to take, that we teach them, that they have an understanding of what their mom is trying to do to take care of them and how they need to respect that. And whoever else that's raising them, we make sure we embed all of that into just getting them to understand, to talk about it. Because it's not about they not wanting you to do certain things, or it's not about, oh, you can't go here, or you can't hang with that person. It's about everything is they care about you. So don't think that just because it's something that you want to do, that your parent or guardian is just trying to control you. But no, they're trying to have better expectations for you. But we really instill manhood on them and understanding that, you're responsible. You got to be responsible. You got to take care of whatever it is that you create. You got to push through whatever it is that you do. You can't give up. But the overall thing is you cannot be disrespectful and not understand the purposes of why your parents do what they do for you, or your guardian, or whoever it is that you live with. So it always that barrier, because a lot of times they've been raised almost like a friendship versus it being a mother-son type of relationship. And we have to get the kids to understand you can't be disrespectful to your parent. You got to understand where they're coming from. And that's kind of where the struggle is. And we have to get them to change that mindset that regardless of what your parents say or do to you, they're doing it because they care about you. So that really be the biggest struggle that we deal with them, and understanding that part.
One of the things I love about sorry, Mr. Trump, but I have to get this out. One of my favorite shows of all time was The Cosby Show. It really showed a responsible set of Black parents, the difficulties that they had to deal with, even though they may have been more in the affluent situations. The things that they faced were no different than what my parents faced, in terms of me trying to sneak off to this concert, or sneak off and do this and do some things as a teenager, and our parents having to deal with it and working together to try to resolve that problem. I was disappointed when society then wants to turn in, regardless of what they thought about Bill Cosby himself. I told my kids the same thing. Regardless of what you think about Bill Cosby and what he did, it was his character on the Cosby Show that I respected. So it doesn't stop me from looking at the Cosby Show in a different light than I am with some buffoonery where you just got to tell jokes and do something that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really contribute toward the health of Black families.
One of the things I wanted to mention
Well,
is
now, Dr. Mosley, one of the questions that I wanted to ask.
Oh, wait, hold on a second, Tyrone. I wanted to make reference to a few a show that we did a few weeks ago, and it was about relationships. And we had Merlin Baker on, and he talked about the number of families that he did counseling with to talk about relationships. And it would be nice if people would have a better opinion about going to a therapist for counseling. I'm working with a program, for example, that's where we're working to build resilience in communities that experience stress and trauma. And you think about the traumatic things that happen in a child's life, and you wonder why the child acts or behaves the way they do. And so for programs like Dr. Mosley, working with these young people in recognizing that there are some things going on at home, for example, and being that person outside of the household. I really admire people who work with young people that are not their children because, in the concept of it takes a village, these programs, these people who dedicate their lives to starting youth run programs for youth to help them stay out of trouble. Again, we have a diversion program, kids who've been a part of the juvenile justice system, and those case managers talking to them, trying to redirect them, making sure that they stay on track. And I always say, get lending that extra hand, helping hand to their parents. If you're just joining us, we're talking about correcting the narrative on Black fatherhood in terms of being a part of their children's lives. If you have any comments, you can always dial in 888-669-1280. Our guests for the evening are Dr. Jerome Mosley and our used to be behind the scenes guy, Tyrone Jackson, who decided that this is a topic that he's really passionate about because from the time I met Tyrone, he always talks about his children. So, Tyrone, you look like you have something on your mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dr. Mosley, has he encountered the circumstance or situation where the young men say they feel like they're always being told to do by women? I had a discussion at the church with a handful of young men, and it was a challenge to help them understand what was going on when they're always being given instructions and told what to do by women. There is no secret in this society that men and women speak a different language. So now you're taking a young man who is trying to find his way. He's getting instruction and direction from a Venetian who is trying to tell him what to do, and he is not understanding it. Have you encountered that?
Oh, most definitely. So they, especially the older, the teenagers that we deal is about 15, 16,
Mhm.
17. They're the ones they do question sometimes about, well, she don't understand, she don't, she's this and she's that. And so that's where we come in at, because sometimes the parents say that, which I mean, the moms will say, well, I only can teach you what I know, I can't teach you to be a man. And so sometimes those teenagers, they're like, well, she tries to tell me this, but she don't know anything about that, or she's trying to tell me this from her. You get some of these young men, they try they what don't listen, or not really understanding where their mom coming from, but we still get them to understand, well, that is not a man or woman thing. Some of the things that a woman can tell you will be the same thing that a man can, but it might just be explained differently. And I think that's where I think they get confused, because it can be something that a female would tell a young man about, but then when I explain it to them from a different perspective, then they be like, oh, I get it. So I think a lot of times it's just hearing it different from the way that their mom might tell it to them.
Right, 100%. It's definitely important that you have those two. But when you have circumstances that we're talking about, where we have these single parent households, mostly led by women. Now, I've always questioned the statement that has been that a woman can't raise a man to be a man, because when you look at our history, women have taught men to be better men throughout our entire history. There was a time during slavery where men were even allowed to read, and women were learned how to read, and then would come back to the home space and would teach the men. The understanding of what a man is, in essence, is somewhat universal. You said it earlier, Dr. Mosley. A man handles his responsibility. He doesn't walk away. It doesn't take a male or a female to teach that lesson. Now,
I agree.
there's a point where it helps to see it in action, but to teach also means also to be able to communicate the understanding, to be the kind of person who says what you mean and mean what you say was taught to me by my mother. Okay, that is a quality of manhood that is essential to the success of manhood. So I think it's challenging when we say we look at these here, statistics that have been said. We got all these women in the hole, and we give them another out. Give them an out. That out is, hey, a woman can't raise a man to be a man. Well, is that truly true? You can give them the information, and upon giving information, it's up to them to determine whether or not to use it and to seek out how it looks on their own. Dr. Kane, you look like that kind of got you going.
Well, no, I was just going to say some of the best advice I ever got was from women. I mean, that taught me how to be a good person. Okay, I take the male part out. They taught me how to be a good person. My mom, my I'm gonna say substitute grandmother because my real grandmother died before I was born. But but the grandmother who was more like an aunt, she taught me how to treat people, how to respect people. Okay, a man, woman, or child. Taught me how to treat a dog, for that matter. You know, it just taught you how to be a good person. And being a good person doesn't require you to be a male or a female. Okay, it requires you to be not to be totally selfish. It requires you to be understanding. It requires a whole lot of things from you as an individual. It does not require two of these, which is what a lot of times men tend to think, that force makes you a man, and it doesn't. What makes you a good man is treating other men and women with respect and being an honest contributor to society.
Well, let's get it correct now, Doc. This here physical thing, that only comes about as a last alternative. When
Exactly.
there are no other options, no other direction, then fisticuffs is the animalistic way to handle things.
But
It's
that's
the way
usually what I'm
nature built it
defending.
to be.
But that's usually when I'm defending. I mean, for me, I can walk away unless you just intent on doing something to me. Then I have to put them up. But if I'm trying to defend my family and protect my family, that's when, I guess my male pride do come along, because that's what I feel my responsibility is to protect my family. So now that is when I will step up and do the things I need to do to protect my family.
Thank
Protecting your family doesn't always have to be violence, though. It can be showing them how to use this to overcome any of the deficits or any of the biases that other people try to impose on you. White, black, blue, green, yellow, whomever it may be. You just have to, if you can use this more than this, because only got these two can only do what this tells them to do. But boy, I can use a whole lot of things with this guy, can do a whole lot of things that these cannot do. And they've
I
got
just read, I'm sorry, Dr. Kane, I read a interesting thought. I was reading something. The CDC reports that Black fathers who live with their children are more likely than fathers of other races to provide physical care, bathe, diaper, feed for their young children, read to their children, and help their children with their homework, all on a daily basis, than fathers of other races who also cohabitate with their kids. So,
exactly.
yeah. The report
Also,
also reveals that among dads who don't live with their children, Black dads are more likely to be involved in care, including reading to their children, helping them at homework, talking to them about their days, and taking them to activities than Hispanic or white dads who live apart from their kids. Non-residential Black fathers are also the least likely to report that they're not at all involved in the care of their children, including bathing, dressing, changing diapers, and playing with their children. So I thought, as we're talking about changing the narrative, I had to read that quote from CDC. And I like how it brought a big smile to you and Tyrone's faces.
But the only thing I didn't do as a Black father that mom did, I didn't breastfeed them. I had nothing to give.
You know what, Tyrone? What we gonna do with him?
I
We
don't
gonna
know.
always,
I
excuse me,
got one.
Dr.
I
Mosley.
got one other question for Dr.
Try
Mosley.
our hardest to stay serious. Go ahead, Tyrone.
Dr. Mosley. So, what is the direction and instruction that you give the youth with regards to physical violence, managing anger and those types? What kind of direction you give along those?
In regards to domestic violence,
Just physical
you said
violence, because Dr. King brought
physical
up the
violence.
point. Yeah, they come to a point where young men want to pull up their nuts and fight it out. So, what is the instruction and direction that you give them with regards to that as an approach?
So that's big because I've been preaching that to these kids to get them to understand. So one of the examples I always give, especially even being a part of alternative school and running an alternative school, I tell them, you guys think you have all the sense, but you're not thinking. I said, if you have an issue with the young man, y'all going back and forth and all this stuff like that, fighting back. I mean, okay, I know generationally or culturally, families say, you don't let nobody punk you. You fight back. You defend yourself. But of course, in the school system, that's not self-defense. So I tell them, you need to be smarter. I say, think about it. If you got somebody wanting to bother you, you can, and you walk away, or let's say they strike you, they hit you, the punishment they get is going to be far worse than you saying, oh, I beat him up, I got my respect, versus if he was to hit you and you were walking away or you was trying to avoid the situation. Now it's other circumstances and consequences that person gets that's far greater than you just being able to say, oh, I beat his butt, I got him off me, I got my respect, he ain't gonna mess with me no more. And that's never the case. I tell them, you win the fight, it's not over. Y'all gonna keep going back and forth, and then it just ripples. Then the next person want to jump in on it, or somebody else want to fight because they know their friend can't beat them up, and then it just go from one extreme to the other. I tell them, you got to learn how to be humble and turn the other cheek. Don't always feel like you got to go back and forth, because at some point when you're grown, that's not gonna work. Then you're gonna end up in prison. So to have that mindset, oh, they say something to me, I'm gonna say something back, or they sizing me up, I'm finna get my respect. You're not gonna disrespect me. You hit me, or I'm gonna hit you before you hit me. I'm gonna win this fight. That's the dumbest thing ever to me. And so I go back and forth with them about that, because they think, oh, he said something to me, I hit him before he hit me. Okay, so now look where you at. You're no further away or better because you won the fight, but you're no further away in the situation because now you have other consequences. Things are worse, and you're still going back and forth. Y'all go on social media, they still talk about it. I mean, it's just the most ridiculous thing. So I try to get them to see how dumb they look after they've done been participating in this back and forth, and they even realize, some of them, how stupid it is.
You have to ask them to define respect. That's one of the things I like to hear from them. Define respect.
But that's a culture thing where they've been taught that, oh, you gonna get your respect. They hit you, you hit them back. The parents be like, I don't care. If they hit you, you hit them back. And I'll support you on that. I know you're gonna get suspended, but I'm gonna support you on that. But that's not teaching them the right thing, because what I tell them is, you're risking a lot. I say, just you hit that kid wrong, even if that kid hit you, you hit them wrong, and then that kid dies. Now what? Your mom is going to be at the judge. Well, judge, I told him the child hit him first, so he had every right to strike him back. I didn't want him to kill him, but I wanted him to protect himself and defend himself. That's not going to win in no court of law.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, the whole notion about respect. So I respect you all to let you know we're at 7:28
Wow.
p.m.
That was
The conversation goes fast. Really a lot to talk about, a lot to digest, because in the future, I would actually like we can bring Dr. Mosley back and whom else, but I would also, I'm not a parent, so I didn't engage in the discussion a lot, but I would like to continue the discussion and have a single mom on. I think about a friend of mine who's raised her children, and I've jokingly called her on Father's Day and said, Happy Father's Day, because her children's father was not in their lives, was still in, right? And so there are mothers who are playing that role of both parents. Great discussion. Thank you all for your insight. Thank you all for sharing your opinions about it. Dr. Mosley, I know you were you joined us late. We appreciate you coming on, making that sacrifice of riding that car and paying attention to traffic and paying attention to us. And by the way, I see that purple thing on your headrest behind you, that purple and gold thing behind you. And I recognize it because my brother has this, he's in that same fraternity. So go Omega Psi Phi, huh?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we like to always end the show giving our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts. What are your final thoughts regarding correcting the narrative about Black fatherhood?
We have to change it. We have to continue to fight this fight. We have to continue to motivate parents. I tell parents all the time, and I know it's easier said than done. These parents that go through things, where it's sometimes situations and relationships can't be rekindled. But I always say, please include the father, or please include the mother in their life. And so we have to continue to help control that narrative and help those parents overcome those things. But we just have to continue to motivate and push this narrative as much as we can, every opportunity that we get, to try to help change as many lives as we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Tyrone, what are your final thoughts regarding correcting the narrative about Black fatherhood?
Well, it is so much to try to sum this all up. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Mosley for joining us. It's always great to have you. Discussion is always made better by your presence. And thanks for allowing me to come from behind the scenes. I think Ms. Jocelyn eloquently said it earlier that this is a subject that that I'm passionate about, because not only do I have boys and I spend time and energy talking with them and other young youth with regards to the circumstances. What I've heard here today that I think is very important is there are two narratives, and part of the narrative is false. Ms. Jocelyn was able to read some information out that was very important, and I hope everyone heard it. Our plight is not as bad as they led us to believe.
Mhm.
All right. And it's all within our ability. When I say I'm talking about all of us who are parents, to make a effort to resolve. The effort needs to be made on the part of mothers who have absent fathers, to bridge the communication gap between them and that man. If they cannot, then they shoulder an additional responsibility of supplying a suitable male influence in that child's life. And so that is very, very important as I look at the dynamics. Let's not be fooled or continue to be fooled and think our situation is hopeless when it is not. Fathers, black fathers are staying. Miss Jocelyn told us when they stay, or if they're absent and present, they're more present than any other race. children's life when we are part of it is monumental. So let's focus on that and continue to set out to improve it against the odds that are set against us.
Wow, that was a mouthful, Tyrone. Thank you so much, Dr. Kane,
Well,
father, grandfather extraordinaire. What are your final thoughts?
I don't know about a father extraordinaire. I know I feel as a man, I grow every day. I learn every day. I want to be a better man every day. The next day, I want to be a better man. I want to be a better father, regardless of what the kind of father I was growing up. As a youngster, I wanted to still be a better father every day. I want to make sure people also understand. And I know you guys have heard this before. When you're raising a child, you better remember once an adult. Once an adult, twice a child. So those same children that you're raising, that you're not teaching the responsibilities of being a good citizen, you may need those same children to help you out when your second time around as a child. Okay, I see patients every day that require their children to assist them as they have become aged. They need those children to take on the responsibility of assisting them in terms of survival. These kids don't do that willingly unless you've taught them how to be an adult, whether it's male or female. So just remember, once an adult, twice a child, and it may come back to bite you.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. If you don't gain anything from tonight, please gain the notion or the thought that it is, I think, all of our responsibilities to help nurture a child. If you are a teacher, children come to you and expect to learn something. And I think as adults, we should all act accordingly around children and keep children in their place as children. And as Dr. Mosley said, parents, too many parents nowadays have, call their children their best friends and stuff like that. While that's a good idea, the children still need to delineate the role that that adult plays in their lives. Tonight's discussion was a good one. It is a reminder to us that although there are many households that do not have the male present living with them, it doesn't mean that the male has to be absent from the lives of his children. And so if you are having a struggle with bridging the gap between the relationship that you have with your children's father, get some help. There are some good therapists out there who are very willing to help. I mentioned Merlin Baker, for example, a few weeks ago, said that he counsels many families who need someone to help interject or help them enhance their relationships. Reach out to him. I don't have his contact information, but you can look it up on, again, Merlin Baker. That's just one therapist, but look on your health insurance plans for therapists because it probably covers it. So you don't have to worry about the pay, but consider that. Know that when people show up in your lives, be it children or your coworkers, they may be showing up with difficult situations that they're dealing with. And sometimes just having somebody to listen, but again, encourage them to get some help, talk to a professional, and not be ashamed about it. For
Mr.
those of
Turner,
you who always,
Mr. Turner, I'm sorry. Before you get out, we forgot. We may want to make sure that people recognize what Dr. Mosley does with his not-for-profit organization, and we want to make sure that we're going to put it in our on our website so that if there's anything that his organization needs and people can help, that they do it. So can we just revert back just real quick? Dr. Mosley, can you tell us how to get in touch with you guys to assist in doing that?
BBUJax, that's boyboyu.org, bbujacks.org. That's our website. You can email me at bridgebuildersunited@gmail.com. We are always taking donations, any type of camping equipment, fishing equipment, outdoor equipment, anything of that nature, please, you can see our website. We are on Facebook at Bridge Builders United, Camp Royal on Facebook as well. But we're always seeking the support. We are growing, and we just plan to impact as many youth lives as possible. But any help and support would be greatly appreciated. Also, we're at for Cash App, money sign BBU Jacks INC. Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Turner.
Oh, no worries. That's a good. I'm glad you remembered, Dr. Kane. Thank you for the good work, Dr. Mosley, that you're doing with Bridge Builders United. Doing some good things. If you notice, he said fishing, camping. I mean, how many kids do you know that really get that opportunity, that somebody actually want to go outside in the wilderness? I'm sorry, in the sun and all of that with them? That would not be me. Anyway, I digress. But thank you for
You got to
tuning
come visit.
in. Thank you for tuning in to Pause for the Truth. Stay tuned next week as we continue the discussion. And by the way, I have to give a plug and say this is our 95th show. In August, we are going to be celebrating our 100th show. If you have any ideas that you'd like to share with us, if there has been a particular show that has been of interest to you, send us a message, info@pauseforthetruth.com, and say, hey, you should have so-and-so back on, or you should continue the discussion on this particular topic or whatever. If you don't remember the topic, go to our website at www.pauseforthetruth.com and look at our archives of previous shows. Again, if you have any topic that you think we should talk about that we've not touched on, we also welcome your suggestions. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. Good night.